This is the MG4 and it's one of the most hyped EVs in the world right now. I'm going to tell you why it deserves all that hype in this review. G'day, I'm Matt. This channel is called The Right Car and this could be the right EV for you if you want a hatchback and if you want it to be very, very good. Look, there's a bunch of different reasons why I think this is such a good EV. I'll go through them all in this review, but just know that there's a bunch of different variants available as well. So yeah, there's a lot to choose from and there's a lot to like. Stay tuned. There are a bunch of different versions of the MG4 and I think that's one of the biggest appealing elements of this car is that there are so many variants available. This one here's the entry-level version. It's called the 51 Excite. 51 stands for the kilowatt hours of the battery pack and you can see on screen now how much range that means for you. And then if you choose the 64 Excite, well, you're getting about an extra 100 Ks of EV range, but it's costing you $6,000 and you're not getting any extra equipment for it. So that might be the right car for you, but I would say that this one still doesn't feel like a cheapie. It's got a bunch of really nice technology and features, including LED lights. You've got 17-inch wheels. They're not alloy wheels. They're wheel covers on steel wheels. And inside you've got a 10.25-inch media screen and also a 7-inch digital info display for the driver. And cloth trim, you've got manual seats, and it does feel a little bit affordable on the inside, but I don't think it's necessarily very cheap feeling. If you choose the 64 Excite, you get the bigger battery pack, but you also get faster DC charging capability, so that might make it worthwhile for your money. Spend a few $1,000s over the 64 Excite and you'll get into the Essence grade, and I think this one is the pick of the range. Comes with a bunch of really nice features that you will appreciate, including 18-inch wheels, so an inch bigger. They're still not alloys though. You've also got different interior trim. You've got heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, and electric driver's seat adjustment, and a few other features that make it feel a bit special. Bigger stereo, there's 6 speakers instead of 4, so it is definitely the pick of the range if you ask me, and good EV driving range. Oh, the claim at least, as you'll see on your screen. A little bit less than the entry version, the Excite with the 64, because there's a few more features. It weighs a bit more. And at the top of the range is the long range version, which has huge claimed EV driving range, 530 Ks, but you're gonna have to pay several $1,000s just to get that extra EV driving range. Obviously that's gonna be right for some people. If you know that you are gonna push the limits of the battery every time you drive the car, then maybe that's the one for you. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of value down low in this range. And we might also see a version of this car called X-Power, which is an all-wheel drive version with 300 kilowatts. Hope we do see that, although I do think it will be closer to 60 grand than 50. It used to be that when you were recommending an affordable EV, it had to be the Nissan Leaf. That was the best option. But these days there are so many competitors that are better than the Nissan Leaf that, well, it doesn't rank anymore as an alternative on the best list, in my opinion anyway. So let me tell you 3 that do. First one, the GWM Ora. It's an all-new model that's launched in Australia and it comes with very assertive pricing, decent range. There's 2 different range versions available and it has a really nice interior and some quirky exterior elements which I really like. Its biggest issue is it doesn't have a big boot, so that might rule it out for you. Another really good alternative is the BYD Atto 3. Hit the link up there and you can check out my review of that one. It's an SUV, but it does have some more interesting elements to the interior than any other car in this sort of price point, and you might love that or you might hate it. On the exterior, it's kind of pretty approachable in terms of the way it looks, but it's also got 2 different range versions available and it starts under 50 grand, so it might be right for you. And finally, you can check out the BYD Dolphin. Now, I haven't driven it yet, but if it's anything like the Atto 3, it's going to be very good to drive, and it's also much more affordable. It starts at $100 less than this MG4, and I think that was, well, a bit of an aggressive play from BYD, but hey, it is pretty promising in terms of what it's going to offer. There's a few different variants available, decent range on offer too, and good pricing. So which would you pick? The MG4 is pretty much sized like a conventional hatchback. It's about the same size as a Volkswagen Golf, just under 4.3 meters long, and it does have 5 seats, so it ticks that box. It's also got nice wide opening doors for loading in children if you have kids, but I've got some stuff to tell you about the back seat when it comes to kids. Now, let's check out the boot, because there's a bit to talk about here too. Boot space in the MG4 is pretty good, I've got to say. Look, it's a competitive size for a hatchback like a Volkswagen Golf or something like that. And you're going to be able to fit a pram and some shopping in there as well. There's one little netted section on the side here, so you can put some items that are maybe a little bit smaller so they don't move around in the back. In here, let's have a look. This is exciting. Let's have a look. There's a cable. Surprise, surprise. And underneath the floor here, you'll find no spare tyre, which is usual for an EV, right? So you've got a tyre repair kit, or a can of goo, as people call it. So it might not be right for you if you need a spare tyre, but then again, you probably shouldn't buy an EV if you need a spare tyre because most don't have them. The interior design of the MG4 is pretty minimalist. Some might even call it a bit austere because it is very basic. There's not a whole lot going on, really, but I'm okay with that. I think that it does have, well, more broad appeal than something like the BYD Atto 3. If you haven't seen my review of that one, hit the link up there. Lots of people hate the interior of that car, it seems, but this one, it is probably going to be more approachable to more people. Okay, so let's talk about it. Well, you've got this 10.25 inch screen up here. It does have a row of buttons below. There's no volume knobs or dials. It isn't as good as it could be when it comes to the controls. You still have to go through the screen to adjust your air conditioning temperature and your fan speed and that sort of stuff. You can turn the fan off or the aircon off using one button there, but otherwise you do have a volume switch. So you've got two switches for the volume, which is a bit funny instead of just having a dial. But otherwise the screen itself does take a little bit of learning, but once you spend some time with it, if you've spent any time in an existing MG, then this is gonna feel sort of like second nature to you. What isn't quite as simple to understand is this driver info screen. The steering wheel controls control it, and they are, well, very minimalist and do take some learning to get your head around what controls what on the screen. Like the cruise controls is a steering wheel button, and then you have to use these little arrow toggles to adjust things like your distance and the speed itself. But you do get used to it. I've driven it for about, well, a couple of hours now, and I've managed to figure it out, so you will too. And when it comes to the other controls, well, this right here is your rotary dial gear selector. To put it in park, you just press the big button on top, which is nice. And it does have stoppers on the edges of the wheel as well, unlike some other cars out there from China that have just an infinite twirling motion to the dial. I'm glad that it's got that. Up here, you've got a little storage tray, which you'll probably use for your phone. Down here, you've got your USB ports, a couple of 12 volts as well. Cup holders down low. Again, some other cars have much higher cup holders, and hopefully you won't spill it as you're grabbing your drink out of there or bumping it into there or something like that. You've got a little storage tray here with a cover and a storage net here, which is where you might want to put your keys, something like that. Covered center console bin, which is nice. Bottle holders in the doors. The materials aren't amazing. These cloth seats are comfortable, but they don't have the greatest feeling material. I like the blue stitching though, that's a nice touch. And I really like the steering wheel shape itself. I think it's a really interesting design for a steering wheel. It's not a circle, it's kind of a squircle. But anyway, let's talk about the back seat. Parents, this might not be the right car for you. There's a couple of reasons for that because, well, A, it doesn't have any lights back here. So if you're loading a child into a child seat at night time, all you have is these halogen lights up the front to help you see what you're doing. That could be really annoying. Another thing that could be annoying for your children is that they don't have any directional air vents in this base model, at least. I'm not sure about the higher grade versions. And when it comes to storage, well, you've got door pockets, and that's about it really. There's a little tray down underneath the center console here, which does include a USB port, just one, but there's no map pockets on the seats. There's no flip down armrests and cup holders, at least in this spec. Maybe in the higher grades you get a few more extra features. This is the base model, remember, so it feels pretty basic in the back seat. But if you do have children and this is the right car for you, you're gonna like this. The ISOFIX points have a nice little Velcro cover over the top. So that means that the seat will be protected by this patch here, and you can plug in underneath there. That's nice to see. Obviously you do have enough space here for a forward facing child seat. A rearward facing seat should be fine as well, because you can move that seat forward quite a bit, because it is quite scalloped in terms of the dashboard. And look, I'll talk about adult space now. I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot. This seat is set for me. I've got lots of knee room, decent foot room, and decent headroom, but not amazing headroom. And like I said, like no lights, a black headliner. It's pretty dark back here, but it could be right for you. I'm just not sure that it's going to be right for everyone. Just like the variant options, there are a bunch of different powertrain details you need to know about this model. So the entry-level 51 model has a 125 kilowatt, 250 Newton meter electric motor, and all versions of the MG4 that we're getting at the moment are rear-wheel drive with a single-speed auto transmission, which is nice. Now, then if you step up to the 64 kilowatt hour versions, you're getting 150 kilowatts, so an extra 25 kilowatts, but still 250 Newton meters of torque, and still rear-wheel drive. And then you get the 77 kilowatt hour long range version, which has a bunch more power and torque, as you'll see on your screen now. And it will be the version for most people who want a bit more grunt, a bit more get up and go. But this thing isn't short of grunt as it is in the base model. So yeah, should be really fast, those top ones. But then there's the even higher version, which we'll probably get at some point, all-wheel drive, the X-Power model with 300 kilowatts and 600 Newton meters. It's going to do 0 to 100 in the 3-second mark, which is a lot and fast and good. I can't wait. There are a few differences between the variants in this model range when it comes to range and charging details. So let's cover this one first. The 51, it comes with a 51 kilowatt hour battery pack, 350 Ks of claimed EV driving range, and you've also got yourself AC and DC charging. You've got a Type 2 combination plug, AC at a maximum rate of 6.6 kilowatts, and you've got DC at a maximum rate of 88 kilowatts, which is a bit slow compared to some of the models out there. And if you step up to the next model up, the 64 models, so you've got 64 Excite and the Essence, they have obviously a 64 kilowatt hour battery pack with different range calculations. You'll see them on your screen now based on the WLTP standard, and they are capable of AC charging 6.6, DC charging at 140 kilowatts. So it is probably worth the extra money if you're going to spend a lot of time doing fast charging in your MG4. And at the top of the range, you've got the long range model. It's got the biggest battery pack with the longest range, and it does have an advantage when it comes to AC charging as well. It can do 11 kilowatt AC charging. That means you can do 3-phase super fast charging at home. Well, not super fast, but faster charging at home. And then you've got, again, pretty quick DC charging as well. Let's talk about the drive experience in the MG4. I am impressed. I'm very impressed. It's unlike any other MG that's currently on sale at the moment in the way that it drives. And that's a good thing, because not that the other ones don't drive very well, it's just that this drives really well. Not just for an MG either. For this class, for a small hatchback, this is a very enjoyable and likable car. Part of the reason I think that it is so enjoyable is because it's rear-wheel drive, so it has a different kind of dynamic to some of those other EV rivals that I've mentioned. Like a Nissan Leaf drives nothing like this. This is more closely aligned to the Cupra Born, which I've also done a review of. You can hit the link up there and check my review of that. I called it the most fun for the money that you can have. And yeah, I think this pushes it a little bit as well. This is a very, very good EV in terms of driving enjoyment. That isn't to say, obviously, that it's a sports car, but it does have some pretty nice dynamism to it. So it corners well. It's got a nice natural steering feel to it, which is very agile, and it does make it feel like this car is ready to go for an adventure. And I really like that about it. And the suspension is also pretty well suited to that kind of character as well. So it does have a lower set, low slung feel to it. Unlike, say, the Atto 3, which is obviously that higher ride height, that SUV element that people want, does come at the expense of driving joy, if you ask me. So I reckon that this has a really nice balance in that regard. And in terms of the ride, look, it isn't the softest or the cushiest ride. Lots of EVs are really heavy, and this is no exception. So it does feel its weight over bumps at times. The ride can feel a bit of the surface below, so you will notice at times that it sort of feels like it's jostling back and forth a little bit. A lot of that has to do with the fact that it is very torsionally rigid, so it's quite stiff. The body of the car is quite stiff, so it isn't necessarily the cushiest drive experience, but it's certainly not uncomfortable, and I reckon it's a pretty nice balance between comfort and control for the most part. There are a few different drive modes that you can choose from. I've just been leaving it in normal because I'm a normal kind of guy, and it is just perfectly fine, I reckon. Of course, you've got regenerative braking as well, with a few different modes that you can choose. I've got it set at level 3, which is the most aggressive regen braking, which should, in theory, mean that it'll almost come to a full stop. It won't actually come to a stop like some of those other cars in the EV world which have that one pedal driving mode. But look, it's still pretty conventional in terms of braking response, and the brake pedal feel is pretty good too. I expected that this EV would be good, but I didn't expect it to be this good to drive. There's a few things to cover when it comes to the efficiency on the range of MG4 models available. As you can see on your screen now, that's the official combined energy consumption figure for the 51 Excite model. And if you're wondering what I've seen over a few days of testing this car, you'll see that on your screen now. So look, tell me what you reckon, if that's good enough or not. It's a little bit higher than I was expecting. And if you spend more and get into one of the bigger battery models, the 64 kilowatt hour models, you can see on your screen now the official energy consumption for those versions. And if you choose the long range model, it's, well, tuned for long range. So it has very good efficiency, as you'll see on screen now. Not bad at all, really. The MG4 achieved the maximum 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating in 2022, so it's got the safety tech you would expect, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian, cyclist and junction detection. There's also a lane keeping assist system and adaptive cruise control on all models. Now, if you choose either the Essence or the long range, you get yourself a surround view camera, as well as blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. If you choose the lower grade versions, you just get a reversing camera. You don't get blind spot or rear cross traffic alert. And when it comes to airbags, you've got 6 on offer, dual front side and full length curtain. This car doesn't come with a front center airbag, but it mustn't have needed one because it's still got 5 stars in Euro NCAP. MG offers a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty for the car and the battery pack, and there's 7 years of roadside assist included as well. Now, when it comes to servicing, this vehicle has pretty long service intervals at 24 months or 40,000 kilometres, so you don't have to worry about going into the dealership all that often. And the cap price servicing plan, there is one. You can see the prices on your screen now if they've been made available. They weren't when I first looked, but they might be there now. It's fair to say I've been blown away by the MG4. I reckon it's a fantastic value for money electric hatchback. It offers a heap of technology and really nice spec, even though there are some things that could be added, I reckon, to this entry-level model, like blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. But hey, I'm not going to be nitpicky. This car is very good, and I reckon it's going to suit a lot of people's needs because of that. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. Would you choose this or one of its rivals or something completely different? I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, please do hit like and subscribe and hit the bell to keep up to date with everything I've got coming. Lots more reviews on their way. See ya.